Hey, everyone. Another episode of Humanity's Voice. One of my favorite humans. I'm going to interview today Kara with, I'm going to say your name wrong, with Witkowski. She's going to have to correct me when she comes on here. She will. And first, I keep posting about her and saying that she is 24, and I am like such a loser because she's 26, but still at 26, Kara has gone through so much and, just literally taking on the deep state in Chicago, in her state. It's so corrupt, and things that have happened to her and what happened to her son. So we're just kind of having an update with her. For the people that don't know who Kara is, she'll kind of tell you a little bit about her story and her son and daughter and what happened. And then we'll get an update. Kara and I will probably do, over the next couple weeks, because some things are coming to light and some things are happening. So as these updates come out, Kara and I will do an interview so she can kind of give everyone an update. But Kara, I'm going to welcome her and she can correct me on how to say her last name. Hey,
Hi,
Kara.
thank you so much for having me, Madyson. I really appreciate it. It is Witkowski, so I am
Witkowski.
Kara Witkowski. This has been a 3-year journey. I'll just give a little bit of background. So I am 26 years old now. I was 23 when it started, so you're not a loser. That's probably what you were thinking of.
It's not funny what happened. I think because I've followed you and we've talked so much that it's like all the ages when we've chatted. So that's where I'm getting the 20, 23, 24, because it happened when you were just so, 26 is young. I was still being trafficked at that age. So you're young, but you're such an old soul too. Like
Well,
that's
thank you for
what I
saying that.
think.
So, just a little bit of background about myself and my story. I have 2 children, James and Sasha. Sasha is still living. James passed away. The reason I started becoming an advocate and going out here with my story and becoming public was because my son passed away. And it was caused by systematic ignorance of what it means to be abused. So basically, the way this all started was I had been raped by my ex-partner, father of my children, and he was threatening to kill me. He had threatened to throw me down the steps of our Elgin house, which we were renting. He had threatened to take the kids away from me. He has EU citizenship, so he was able to do that. He threatened to lock me in an attic. Just horrible things that he was saying. The one I remember most is when he actually said to me that I would have to explain to cops how a TV fell on me 15 times. That was
Wow.
that was a lot to take in. First of all, just the arrogance of that statement where you think that the cops are going to believe you, that was problematic for me. And second of all, a TV falling on someone 15 times, which obviously he means taking a TV and hurting me with it 15 times. A TV is a very large object. I would not live through something to that extent. So
Wow.
just there were huge red flags, huge warning signs. I was trying to get out of the situation. My friend was actually going to send me plane tickets to New Hampshire, which she did. One of the things that Madyson knows is narcissists, they'll get into your life fully. They'll get your passwords, they'll get your accounts, and they'll find those things.
Yeah.
So I was very clear with my friend, like, don't send me anything via email, text, whatever, like, because I don't want him finding it. And she did send an itinerary form of everything that I needed to take with me and everything else because of being assaulted and being my life being threatened, the children being threatened, because he actually stated in messages to me that he was a greater risk of rape to my children, that he had no sense of ethics, that he said that he had almost beat a child to death. And these are messages that he admitted to. They were in the police report. They were in the order of protection, all of this. So everyone knew this man was A, abusive, and B, enjoyed bragging about being abusive.
Towards kids.
Towards kids and towards myself. Yes.
Wow.
So he had found the itinerary And he had confronted me at work, actually. And this was something that was told to the guardian ad litem. And I'm going to describe the situation very quickly because this has to do with filicide, which is something that plagues family courts, where a father will kill himself and then kill his child or children, or a mother will do the same. It's called filicide. So there was already a threat of filicide as well in this case. So this is how many things that these judges missed. And it's just outrageous. So he came and confronted me at work. I am a CNA. I had one of my clients, very personal, very close with this specific family. So he comes in at work, and my client's the mother-in-law of my client is there, or I'm sorry, daughter-in-law. The daughter-in-law of my client is there. Her husband, and then the son of my client, because my client's older. So everyone's there, and he goes to me, says, "How could you do the one thing that would make me kill myself?" And I just look at him like, I already know what he's talking about. Not stupid. I just said, "You keep raping and threatening to kill me. What else was I supposed to do?"
Yeah.
And he basically said that if he was going to be leaving, he wasn't the only one that would be going. So he threatened his life and the lives of my children right then and there. And there's even like an order of protection. My boss went to go apply for an order of protection to make sure he did not come back to the house. So there is record of her doing that. And they declined her order of protection because mine was granted, and that included my place of work. So she kept telling him to leave. The only time he actually did leave is when her husband said he needed to get out. So they all left, and after they left, I told my boss that I needed to go to the police department to file a complaint regarding the assault. And the reason why I did that is because after he left, he called me. Now, originally he had told me that he raped me because he had a multiple personality disorder and he was raped severely as a kid, prolonged sexual abuse, and I did feel sorry for him, which is why I just wanted to leave, get out, and make sure me and the kids were safe. Yeah. And, I didn't expect the police to do anything anyways because it was a domestic. But he called me, and he said to me on the phone, "Now I can tell you the truth." I'm in the bathroom. I locked myself in the bathroom to take his call. And I go, "The truth about what?" He goes, "Oh, I never had any of those personality disorders. I just did this to keep raping you."
Wow.
And that was it was the greatest betrayal that I have ever felt, because I loved this man unconditionally for 5 years. Despite everything that this man had done to me, I still loved him, and I felt sorry for him, and I wanted him to get help. The condition of our separation after the first sexual assault was that he would go to therapy. And that was another thing he told me on the phone, that he had never gone to therapy. So he had pretended to be in therapy as well. So all of it was just a lie.
That's what covert narcissists are, though. They make you fall in love with them, and then you become attached to them. And it's because you had trauma when you were a child. It's that trauma bonding.
Exactly. Exactly. He knew exactly what he was doing. In fact, he had even told me that he knew before I even told him that I was sexually abused as a child, because of how willing I was to follow orders and how easy I was to get myself to do what he wanted. So he knew exactly what to look for when he wanted to find a woman, and he wanted to groom that woman. So anyways, so I file everything with the police and everything, and they suggest I go get an order of protection. So I go and get an order of protection because they actually had released him. So I go and get an order of protection. I'm freaking out because it is a weekend that they did this. They did this on Friday, the arrest. They let him go, I believe it was Saturday. So that means I have a whole day of wondering if something's going to happen to me and my kids before I can go get an order of protection.
And the police didn't give you a temporary one, because the police have the authority to do that.
They did not. Isn't that unbelievable? They did not. So shame on them.
Because the police are so corrupt at this point.
Well, I'll have to check Illinois law, because I don't want to like speak out of turn to see if that is something they could have done, because different states have different laws.
Right.
I will say, though, that the specific detective that I worked with, and you'll find out more about her because she was also the detective on the child pornography case, she seemed to have something already set in her head where it's like, this is a domestic, it's not going to go anywhere, I'm not going to bother with this. And they're just seeing it as a domestic, where this man is a serious danger and a serious risk.
Right.
It was not until they saw all the text messages where he admitted to rape where they're like, okay, we're going to have the state's attorney review this. Because those text messages are scary. The admissions on those messages are scary. To me, no one should be around a child if they say something like that.
Right.
It's terrifying. And if they have the guts to admit something like that, that means they think they're untouchable, which is even more of a problem. Because somebody who admits to that, in my opinion, they're thinking that way because they've already gotten away with a lot of criminal activity. That's just my opinion on the matter.
And
I'm not saying that's the case, but just given how it all went down, that's my way of thinking.
Yeah.
So anyways, I get the order of protection on Monday. Go for an emergency order of protection. They have all of the documents. I didn't even have a lawyer at this point. Emergency order is granted. Absolutely no problem. Emergency order is granted. So, and before the emergency order was granted, he was sending me like emails still and texts, even though I wanted nothing to do with him, about 50-50 custody of the kids and trying to send me court documents, which I was ignoring. And that was also in the emergency order of protection when we were going for it, that he was sending these documents to my email that I had already blocked him on Facebook. And he went into another account to contact me on Facebook yet again to tell me that he wanted 50-50 custody of the kids. So that was all in the emergency order of protection petition as well. So then we go to court. I do have a lawyer. I let the lawyer know everything that's going on. The lawyer was aware that they were even doing a review of my rape case with the state's attorney's office, and the state's attorney was going to make a decision regarding it due to those text messages and those admissions, which, by the way, that state's attorney is gone. And he left shortly after all of this happened. I'm not saying he left. He did not. Okay. But yet, a new state's attorney comes in, same crime, same case, and he gets charged. And not only does he get charged with felonies, domestic battery, aggravated domestic battery, and criminal sexual assault. So that just tells you that there was a case all along.
Yeah.
And it was ignored. And that should be looked into, because that state's attorney was male. This state's attorney is female. And I think that has a lot to do with it. Well, they don't want to waste their time on domestic cases because, one, they think we'll recant because we'll get back with our abusers.
Yeah.
Two, they think that it's a waste of money because they're not getting much money out of it. Like, they get more money out of drug crimes. So there are multiple reasons why he probably didn't go forward when he should have went forward.
I think it depends on what state you're in on the domestic, because certain states have certain crimes that they charge more so because they get more money out of it. Like in Colorado, they charge more for domestic because they have the people take the deals and then they get money through classes and everything else. It's like a money maker. So it's depending on the state.
Okay.
But I believe that with Chicago, I mean, everything that I know about your story, the corruption is so deep.
Chicago is the worst state, and that's not even a conspiracy theory. Like, it's literally stated in multiple publications that our state is the absolute worst when it comes to corruption. So just going further into the story, and I'm going to skip ahead a bit. So we go into court for the plenary order of protection, which is a 2-year order of protection. And the judge is seeing where he's admitted to raping me. And he asks him, like, point blank, did you send this? Is this true? And he says yes. Like, he literally says yes in court that he did this. And then he says that I was the best thing that ever happened to him in court. So I'm getting an order of protection against you because you raped me. You're admitting to the fact that you sent these messages stating that you raped me. And then you're also saying that I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. So what more evidence is needed to show that someone committed this crime.
Yeah.
And the judge agreed with me, and the judge agreed with my attorney, especially after reading the messages. You could see his eyes just like, oh my God, go like shocked that somebody would even.
Who was that judge?
Well, that's what's so interesting. That was Dalton. And yet Dalton flipped. So anyways, so Dalton grants my 2-year order of protection, which, by the way, it's extended yet again. I have that order of protection for another year. And I'm going to be applying for it again. So if it's granted, which it will be, considering the charges on him right now, then that will be 4 years. So you don't just have an order of protection against someone for 4 years because they're not an abuser. So he granted it. So everything seems to be going fine. My lawyer is shocked at how well everything's going because the judge is known for hating women. Like, he's even known by lawyers for hating women. Yeah. It's terrible that they would even have a judge in family court that's known to hate women. So anyways, so everything's going fine. Tom is getting, my lawyer tells me at work that she was supposed to go in just to get his supervised visitation schedule. And then she lets me know that they decide not to do supervised visitation. And I'm like, what? Why not? That doesn't make any sense. He admitted he's a danger to my kids, and then he's a greater risk of rape. Why would you not have supervised visits? And he was living with his dad and his stepmother at the time, so I'm wondering if that has something to do with it. But the point is, it should have been on record that he needed supervised visits.
Yeah.
So anyways, so he's getting his supervised visits, and my daughter comes back like the first time from one of these visits, and she has bruises. She has a bruise under her right butt cheek. She had little bruises on the back of her legs, and she had this huge bruise on her lower back. And, I talked to my friend who is, she's the daughter of police officers. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to upset the apple cart here. It's a custody case. What do you think I should do? She goes, go to the police just to document the incident. Don't ask for an investigation, just to document it. And my daughter, her private area was very red, very inflamed. And my mother was here at the time when this all happened. So she was present for this whole situation that was going on. She was the one that took us to the hospital. So she took us to the hospital, and they said not the hospital, I'm sorry, the police station. She took us to the police station, which was the Palatine Police Department. Palatine Police Department wanted us to go to the hospital. I said, do you think that's really necessary? They said yes. I said, I just want this incident documented. I just want the pictures documented. I don't want an investigation. They said, you need to go to the hospital. So obviously they'd be investigating if they're having us go to the hospital. Right. To go to the hospital, the doctor even says concerns for domestic. That was in the report. So all of this is taken. And then there's a video of my daughter talking about being touched in her private area by her grandfather, and that she was being hit by her father, and that her brother was being hit in the head by her father, which there was bruising on my son. On one of his pictures, there's a bruise on his forehead. And he was even found with bruising on his head in the autopsy when he died. So that has a lot to do with it too.
Now, how old were they when this was all happening?
She was 3. She was 3, and he was a little over 1. So we went to the hospital, got all this documented. And then we have everything ready for court to get the emergency, because even my lawyer felt that we needed to do an emergency intervention here, and for me to be primary custodial, which I already was, but with him only having supervised visits. Yeah. So we go into court, and the judge makes this decree that, based upon the video evidence and everything else, that Jerry Beal, which is Tom's father, can't have any contact with my daughter. But then Tom's lawyer pipes up, and he's like, well, he lives with his father. So then the Judge Dalton, same guy who knows this person is abusive, says that Jerry can just go in the other room. Can you believe that one? So I'm just like, what is going on here? And I'm trying to figure out, like, from my lawyer, what is going on here. And I'm getting more and more upset. But like I said, I'll skip ahead. So So then we have a follow-up to do a hearing based upon the abuse of my daughter and what she's been saying. And they had hired a guardian ad litem. The guardian ad litem basically goes into court, says that I'm projecting my own child abuse onto my daughter. And it's even stated in court by my daughter's father that she's showing signs of sexual abuse, and by his friend, who's the godfather of my daughter. So there's already concerns, not just from me, but from apparently them, that she's showing signs of sexual abuse. But then it's being said it's all in my head, which doesn't make any sense. So I'm getting really upset. They're talking about my daughter being abused. They're talking about me being abused. And like, this is super triggering, obviously, for anyone who's been through something like this, especially when I'm being told that I'm making this up and that I'm a liar. I was pissed. So I walk out because they won't even let me speak. And the judge refuses to look at my daughter's medical records. The judge refuses to look at the pictures of my daughter. The judge refuses to look at the video and actually watch it, which is unbelievable because he made a decision based upon the video, but then doesn't want to watch it. And then basically just says that he's not going to do anything and that the custody is going to stay the same. So I got pissed. I walked out of the courtroom and I said, "You're all protecting a pedophile." And I was beyond my point at that. It just was too much. So then my lawyer tells me that she wants to leave the case, that the only way that she wants, I can't remember her exact words. She just said she wanted to leave the case. And I said, well, I'm not going to fire you. Like, I know that having lawyer is better than no lawyer, especially in this case. Yeah. And she's like, will you please, take me off this case? The judge isn't even listening to me. I was like, no, I want you to stay on the case. And so that was that. And then she calls me a couple weeks later and she's just like, because this happened, that particular incident, I want to say happened May 2nd. So May 15th was when the larger incident happened. So before that, she calls me. And she's just like, I just want to let you know that if you want to continue having me on your case, it's going to be $1,000 a month. And I'm like, wait, even if you don't do anything, like it's just going to be $1,000 a month? And yes, that was literally what she wanted.
Right there.
It didn't make any sense to me, especially like if you wouldn't even do anything that month, why am I automatically paying you $1,000? Yeah. So I was like, no, like I can't afford that. I'm a CNA. That's completely unreasonable.
Yeah.
And so she was like, okay, I just need you to sign this paperwork saying that I can withdraw from the case. It's like, okay, fine. So sign the paperwork that she can withdraw from the case. It is May 15th. I am at a live-in for that same client that I was telling you about previously.
Do you want to say who the attorney is so people know to not hire her, or do you not feel
comfortable? No, that's okay. I'm not going to name the attorney because she is actually doing a lot of amazing things for both women and children right now. And I personally know that. She went into her own practice. So I think a lot of it was she was going by the original lawyers that she was with, unfortunately, in the firm. Because she left that firm shortly after this all happened. So anyways, I'm not going to name the attorney. Okay. So then I get a call from my roommates at the time. And they're like, the police are here. And I'm at a job. I'm like, what do you mean the police are there? So there's a temporary order to take custody of Sasha and James. Well, James is with me at work, which nobody talks about that. That's really interesting. Nobody talks about the fact that James was with me at work and always went to work with me.
Yeah. So
I'm like, giving me the phone, like, let me talk to them. And the one cop was just like, I have no idea what's going on, because he had taken a complaint from me regarding a violation of order of protection. He already knew what Tom admitted to raping me. He goes like, I'm going to call the FBI. I don't understand this. And he was really like upset. Obviously, he goes, Kara, just do what they say. Just you have to do it. Then get a lawyer. Figure it out. And I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I don't have an attorney at this point. There's a judge order and a guardian ad litem signature. Obviously I have to comply. And I was like, well, you know what? I can't even leave. Right now, I am at a live-in job. My clients are out of town. Like, I need to call my boss. I need to figure this all out. So obviously I'm not a danger to my kids because they let me wait until 8 p.m. to get to the house to take custody of my kids. So that doesn't even make any sense. Because you're claiming I'm this severe danger to my children. I have my son with me at work. My daughter is with the same roommates you're claiming that are a problem, but yet it is 1 p.m., between noon and 1 p.m. when you call, you're giving me 7 hours to get there so you can pick up my kids. So when does that ever happen with CPS? When does that ever happen with the police? It doesn't. because an emergency is an emergency. It's not let me wait 7 hours to collect children. So that was already a huge red flag to me that something more is going on here than what meets the eye.
And I want to cover that real quick, like with CPS, anyone watching, CPS does not have the authority over anybody. They are a privately they're funded by tax dollars, but they do not have authority to come into anybody's home, to take anybody's children. What they get you is when you sign away on a paper, whatever the plan is, then you signed your rights away to CPS. So if CPS ever comes knocking at anybody's door watching, you shut the door or you don't answer. If they call you, you ignore them because they have no authority over your children. And if they threaten to go to your kid's school, there's a thing called the Hatch Amendment. Every state has it. You give that to the school. If the school lets CPS talk to your kids, then they have the Hatch Amendment, you can sue the school. So I just want to clarify that for people, because when we're talking about CPS, I mean, you were so young, and and I know that they had a court order, but that means the court has to take possession, not CPS, which was not communicated, I'm sure, to you at 23.
It was not CPS that took possession. The order was signed by the judge and by Julie Pirtle, which was the guardian ad litem. So it was not CPS. And I actually had that wrong too originally. I thought it was CPS. It was not. It was them. Also, in this entire time, I have never signed a safety plan once with CPS. So anyways, so they take possession of my children and they give them to Tom.
The police officers or the guardian ad litem?
The police took the kids and gave them to Tom. Tom and his father were waiting for my kids outside the door. So they did all this, and I'm trying to figure out what to do. So I became pro se, and I started fighting for myself. They, without even asking if my really good friend / babysitter of the kids could do this, they just made her a court-appointed supervisor. They only gave me 3 days a week. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, which I could never do Mondays because I knew I worked, and my work schedule is not something I can just change when I'm a CNA for private clients.
Right. A CNA, for people that don't know, it's a certified nursing assistant.
Yeah. So that's even more amazing that they took my kids, because I am allowed to be alone with my clients. I'm allowed to do everything that I need to do with my clients, but yet apparently I'm not okay around my kids. It doesn't make any sense. And like, this has happened to this one woman I know. She's a doctor, and I did this to her. So they'll do it to anyone. They don't care. So anyways, my friend / the babysitter of the kids, and this is the woman whose parents are cops. So not only is she saying what's going on with my kids, it's her mom too, who works for a police station that's seeing the bruising, the black eyes, the busted lips, and this is all going on. So she's writing like all these reports about what she's seeing, and she's calling DCFS, and she's calling the guardian ad litem. I mean, they had my son in in 2 size too small diapers. They didn't even know what to put him in. It was really sad. Like the first time that Tom took my kids with his father, he sent me a message saying, "What does James eat?" Like, he didn't even know what to feed his son because he never took care of his son. He had no idea what to do. So once again, now the court supervisor that Julie Pirtle asked to be on the case is saying my kids are being abused. And they're telling, we have all this documentation, we have these pictures, we have videos, we have everything you could possibly need to prove abuse of children. And the guardian ad litem's just like, no, not listening, doesn't care, doesn't want to see any of our evidence. So this is where things start getting really bad. So I get a call yet again. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't a call, it was a message. I get a message at work that my son is in the hospital. This is from Tom. I'm like, why is my son in the hospital? Oh, he's already been there 2 nights. I'm like, excuse me? For what? What is going on here? He goes, he has a prolapse rectum. Now, anybody who knows about prolapse rectums, that is not something for an extended hospital stay. Ever. It doesn't make any sense unless it's a very severe case, and in which case you would know that there were signs of constipation long before it got to that point. So I'm like, okay, have you been potty training him? Are you not giving him enough fiber? Like, I'm trying to figure out what is going on, because this happened within literally, I want to say 2.5 months of them taking custody. That's it. So I call up the nurse over at the hospital, and she goes, "Oh, your son had surgery." Like, what? She goes, "Yeah, he had surgery for the prolapse rectum." And I'm like, what kind of surgery? And she's like, "Oh, I can't tell you anything more. You need a code or whatever." She goes, "But I will tell you that he's already prolapsed 3 times today." So basically, it wasn't staying in place. I'm getting more and more upset. Like, what is going on here? And then Tom messages me. He goes, do you want to come and see James? I was like, yes, of course I want to come and see James. I'm calling up the guardian ad litem, trying to figure out how to go and see James. Like, okay, she said you can come and see James. Okay, great. Whatever. The guardian ad litem never called me. She didn't tell me that. It was all going through Tom, which was even a stranger, because they had a connection like this where she wasn't informing me of anything that was going on. So my boss, because I don't drive, my boss is like, "I will take you to personally see James." So we get in the car. We're on our way to see James. We get a message yet again from Tom, not from the guardian ad litem. And this is all on a protected site. So the court is reviewing all of what's going on here because it's through our family wizard. And so basically every single thing throughout this entire case has been documented. So we get this message saying, "Oh, we can't come because I don't have my court-appointed supervisor." They wanted me to have my court-appointed supervisor, which, by the way, was more underqualified than the person that was taking me to be with us. Wow. And I'm just like, no, I don't care about that. I'm coming. I don't care that you want my court-appointed supervisor. She's not available. We're coming anyways. And I'm like, and I'm going to bring my order of protection, and I'm going to show them who's the real danger here. Yeah. So I get there with my boss, and we go in and we see my son. And my son, well, first of all, we had all sorts of problems because they were trying to say that we couldn't see my son. And this is where it gets even stranger. They're like, "Okay, we talked to the director of the pediatric floor, and she'll watch you with your son." So just remember that they didn't have a problem leaving my kids with me until 8 o'clock for me to get home because there was no emergency, but yet a pediatric director has to watch me with my kids.
When you weren't the one that did anything, you weren't even with your son when this all happened. But Tom was allowed to be alone with him in the hospital and everything. Wow.
Exactly. In that particular hospital, he was allowed to be alone with him. And others, no, he wasn't. There's actually paperwork showing that he was not even allowed to pick up James from the hospital. And neither was his father. Wow. So, but this first hospital, yes, he was. So I'm like, okay, whatever, fine. Just, let me see my son. Yeah. So I go up to the room and I'm seeing my son, and he has his butt literally taped shut. And they said he had just had an enema, like he's going through all these tests. And, he lit up when he saw me, and we played and we had fun and we sang Baby Shark, made a great time. I'm talking to the nurse, and I see that there's a meal chart already for my son, which they only put meal charts if they're going to stay over. So like, is my son staying yet another night? And she's like, "Yeah, we're going to keep him because we don't know what's going on with him. He's still prolapsing." She said what the other nurse said, that he had prolapsed 3 times that day. So I'm obviously upset. And she goes, "We want you to speak to the social worker before you leave," because Tom had personally requested that I speak with the social worker before I go.
Why did you need to speak to the social worker?
Because he wanted me to hear from her that they don't think there's abuse or whatever. It was most likely covering his ass.
Yeah.
So the social worker, she looks like she's literally my age, if not 2 years apart from me. Very young woman. And I go, "Have you called DCFS yet?" She's like, "Well, why do you think I should call DCFS? We don't see a reason to do that." I go, "You have a toddler come into your hospital who has received surgery for his prolapse rectum," and they want to call it a surgical procedure. I don't care. Surgery is surgery. And he's still not getting better, and he keeps prolapsing. You don't have any cause of how this could have happened. His father is being looked at for child pornography. And you don't want to call DCFS.
Did they run a rape kit on James?
Not at that hospital, no. She goes, are you, they did a, what do they call it? They did, what do you call that procedure when females go to have themselves looked at? I can't think of the word. Yes, they did an anal pap smear on him, which I'm not really sure why they did that, but that's what they did on him. So anyways, so this woman goes to me and she goes, are you telling me how to do my job? And I was like, yeah, I was done at that point. I just walked away. Yeah. So my boss is like, so did they call DCFS? And I go, no, they didn't call DCFS. And she was just in shock. Like, given all the circumstances, given the order of protection, everything that this hospital knew, DCFS should have been called. Like, this hospital was definitely in the wrong. Yeah. And so was the social worker. I hope she was fired. Anyways, so we go in the car and my boss tells me that she's going to call DCFS because I didn't want to call because they haven't done anything. You know, everybody's been calling, nobody, and they don't do anything. So I was like, I was done with it. She goes, I'm going to call. So she called. Next thing I know, I'm getting a message from Tom only an hour later after this call that James is being emergency discharged from the hospital. Yet he was supposed to stay overnight. Yet nothing has been fixed. Yet it hasn't been 24 hours without a prolapse, which is what is needed to emergency discharge a child from a hospital that's having prolapse. So he tells me, do you want to see the kids? I was like, well, yeah, of course I want to see the kids, but James just went through a major ordeal here. Like, is he ready to be okay, be released from the hospital and everything? Like, if he needs to stay in the hospital longer, that's fine. I'm very concerned about him. He goes, no, do you want to see the kids or not? I go, yes, fine. So he drops the kids off to me. And they're both acting very strange. We get home, I start changing James' diaper. The court supervisor's with us. And while I'm holding James' diaper, or while I'm changing James' diaper, Sasha comes over and is holding my son's hand. And she's never done this before. And while I'm changing my son's diaper, I notice that his butthole, like that's what you would call it, is literally pulsing. Like, it's breathing. And I'm just like, how is that even happening given his age? It was very disturbing. And it was huge. It was like this big for how old he was, which again is not normal. It was gaping. So Sasha says she's got to go to the bathroom. And the court supervisor picks up James. We all go to the bathroom. The door is cracked open. I go in with Sasha. And Sasha goes, someone hurt James. And I go, well, who hurt James? She goes, Grandpa put a toothbrush in James' butt and had me pull it out. I tried to carry him off the bed, but Grandpa pushed me down. And the way she said it was with no emotion, that it wasn't a problem. It was just like she had breakfast and she's telling me what she ate for breakfast. And I'm just like, what just came out of my 3-year-old's mouth?
And did the court supervisor hear this?
Yes, she heard it because the door was cracked open. She contacted Julie Pirtle immediately and told her what she said. And then Julie Pirtle just messaged her back, well, DCFS is already looking into it. That's all she said. So then Tom picks up the kids. This is hours later. So Tom picks up the kids. And after he picks up the kids, I get a message on our family wizard that DCFS is taking custody of my children, that I'm not allowed to know where they are, that he's not allowed to know where they are, which was a lie because I actually have it in the hospital paperwork that the guardian they chose was Helena Beal, who is stepmother of Tom. So the children never left that house. So that was all a lie. And that I'm not allowed to know there. And I'm calling DCFS. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I didn't sign a safety plan. There is no court order saying they can do this. I'm freaking out. I'm calling the guardian ad litem. Guardian ad litem won't answer me back. So nobody is telling me anything that's going on. So at this point, I'm like, I wait a week and I'm like, my kids are basically missing at this point. Nobody will tell me what's going on. We haven't been to court. There's no court order allowing us. And the DCFS worker had called me back that day at 9 p.m. at night. This woman calls me. And she goes, this is all your fault. We're doing this because of you. And I'm like, excuse me, what are you talking about? You're putting all these things into your kids' heads, which I'm sure she got that from Julie Pirtle, because Julie Pirtle was trying to convince my therapist that I was going to murder my kids. So I can't imagine what she was saying to cops and DCFS workers. So this is all happening. And I'm like, I didn't do anything. I just want to know how my son is. You know, he has a condition. I want to make sure it's being taken care of and that the person knows how to do it properly. And I go, who do you think you are? And she goes, I'm DCFS. I was like, all right. And she hung up the phone. So I go to the police, like I said, a week later, and I'm like, I want to report, and this was Palatine Police. I go, I want to report my son missing. I want to report my daughter missing. Nobody's telling me what's going on. I don't know what's going on. My son has this condition. I don't know if it's being properly cared for. I need to report this. So I'm reporting all of this, and they're telling me they can't file a missing persons report. They're saying that they know where my kids are. I'm like, okay, well, then give me the paperwork from DCFS stating that and show me the safety plan. Oh, we don't have to do that. I go, yes, you do. My kids were taken possession of without my acknowledgement. I would like to see the paperwork showing why this was done and where they are. And he was just very rude to me, that specific detective. And he goes to me, he goes, you know, look, you're not the first mother that this has happened to, and you won't be the last. And he was just very cruel. So I go, I want to speak to your supervisor. And so the supervisor comes in, and he's just staring at me, and he's laughing at me. Same treatment that I just got from the last guy. And I go, I'm not leaving here until I get some answers. And so they just left me in the room alone. So I was like, all right, I'm just leaving. So I left. I'm trying to still figure out where my kids are. I'm not getting any information. We go into court, I think it was a couple weeks later, and they're like, Julie Pirtle says that she wants me to have government facility supervised visits. I'm like, no, I'm not a danger to my children. You've never proven I was a danger to my children. I'm not about to do that. So I'm like, absolutely not. So I didn't end up seeing my kids for 3 months because I refused to do this. They were playing hardball with me, thinking I would fold, and I never folded. So I get a phone call while I'm at work, October 31st, 2019. I'm working for another client of mine in Yorkville. And it's from a doctor, and he goes, your son is very sick. You need to come and see him. And I already knew something was terribly wrong, because I didn't need a supervisor. I could just come to the hospital all of a sudden. What has changed? I'm checking for messages on our family wizard from Tom, and there's nothing. It's all quiet. So I get a lift to the hospital. I let my mom know, so she meets me there. And I'm greeted by one of the staff members, and she takes me into my son's room. And it's just a blank slab. There's nothing there. And the doctor comes out, and he's staring down at the floor. And he tells me that he didn't make it. And I'm like, what do you mean he didn't make it? Like, all he had was this prolapsed rectum. I don't understand how this could have happened. And he's just like, oh, we don't know. And I'm just, I didn't know what to do. And he goes, do you want to hold him? And while he's talking to me, all these cops that I had dealt with, that I had begged to do something, are aligned against the wall, staring at the floor. They won't speak to me. They won't even look me in the eye. They're just staring at the floor. And I said, yes, I want to see my son. So they give my son to me, and there's these red marks all over his stomach that look like slap marks. And I asked the nurse, and I go, what is this? She goes, oh, that's just what happens when people die. And I go, no, it's not. I have seen someone die right in front of me. I know what rigor mortis looks like. This is not rigor mortis. What is this? And then next thing I know, she's telling us we need to leave. Me and my mom, we need to get out. So we did. We had to leave. They said that they were going to have the coroner come and look at my son, and then that was that. So we go in for an emergency motion regarding my son's death in front of Judge Cruz, because Judge Dalton had already stepped down October 10th, which is suspicious. Julie Pirtle asked to be emergency discharged from the case October 26th.
Yeah, because
which
they
is
are part of your son's murder. I mean,
which is extremely suspicious.
yeah, they need to be held accountable for
And there
their
hasn't been a guardian ad litem on this case since her discharge, which again is extremely suspicious because you clearly have abuse going on here.
Yeah.
Especially when my daughter's been stating for 3 years that she's being sexually abused.
Right.
So Judge Cruz was the judge at the time, and he denied our emergency motion and still wasn't allowing me to see my child after her brother had just died. I'm making a bunch of noise on Facebook. Things are getting out of hand. We go in the next time. He's saying, okay, you can see your daughter. It was only 1 week where I was with my mom going to a Barnes and Noble to see my child, which my mom was already declared unable to be a supervisor. So all of a sudden they're just letting my mom supposedly supervise me, quote unquote. And it was like for 4 hours. And then all of a sudden I'm getting overnight visits. So clearly I was never a danger or an issue here, because you don't do that without a guardian ad litem. You don't do that without a 604B. You don't do that without anything, between all those steps. There's steps taken before custody is given back to a mother after you've taken custody from them unlawfully.
Yeah.
So I'm already having overnights with my daughter. Everything is going fine. I mean, she's having issues clearly, but nothing to do with me. She's having issues because of her trauma. So then it progresses. They give me the autopsy results from the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office, and it says undetermined natural. And I go, no, that's completely unacceptable. It doesn't even make any sense. You're not giving me a cause of death. They were basically just trying to say that it was sudden unexplained death of child, which you wouldn't have the kind of records my son had leading up to his death if that was the case. So I go, I'm hiring my own person. So I make a GoFundMe, I get a bunch of money. I think it was $7,000 we raised, and then I get a forensic pathologist. Forensic pathologist does her investigation. Her preliminary findings are suffocation concerns for my son, given bruising around his mouth, bruising around his nose, the deep tissue back bruise, which, remember, Sasha also had a deep tissue back bruise. Now my son is having a deep tissue back bruise that is seeing, and then a bruise on his forehead as well. So then she finishes her investigation, because I'm skipping ahead here, I'm sorry. So she finishes her investigation, and she comes up with the cause of death for my son is a cervical spinal cord injury. There is nothing in the police report about my son falling, about there being a car accident. There is nothing about any incident. It's just said that he was found dead in the bed, his lips blue. So it says that in the report, just as, the forensic pathologist said, the lips were blue, which is bruising around the lips, and that he was bleeding from his nose and his mouth, and foaming from his nose and his mouth. So then I'm getting very loud. I'm showing all these discrepancies. I'm posting recordings with the medical examiner proving the discrepancies and everything else. So then I'm being bullied by Judge Cruz and opposing counsel to sign a 50-50 custody agreement, which I kept telling them, no, there's no way I'm ever signing this. And then I'm being told that if I don't sign this, I'm going to jail for 6 months.
And this is with your daughter, Sasha.
Yes. And, my attorney confirmed it. I would go to jail.
How are they going to put you in jail? Because you're not agreeing to their unlawful, illegal orders?
I was violating a gag order by talking about my case. So they really were going to do this. They were really going to put me in jail. So basically, I was forced and coerced to sign this horrific agreement that everyone knows I never wanted to sign. Even Palatine Patch put it out there that I was forced to do this. So Judge Dalton, no longer judge. He became an evictions judge in a different courthouse. Judge Cruz was put on the traffic and misdemeanor, where he was the presiding judge of family court. So he was taken off of that.
Is it Judge Cruz still? Who's your judge now?
Judge Peterson is my judge. And Judge Peterson has been a very good judge.
Okay.
So this is all happening. I'm forced into this 50-50 custody. My daughter's still saying she's being abused. In fact, when he had her, he decided to tell her therapist that she was saying that Baba was putting blocks in her private area and her butt. This was him doing this. This is Tom Beale saying this to the therapist. So they do an entire investigation. They find all this evidence. My daughter's having yeast infections. My daughter's having UTIs. My daughter tells a forensic interviewer that she's being sexually assaulted. She tells nurses she's being sexually assaulted. She won't even let them do a rape kit on her or any sort of exam because she's freaking out and flailing and screaming and won't let anyone touch her. And this is all with her dad.
With Judge Peterson, if he's the judge on this and he's a good judge, why is he still allowing 50-50 custody? Because there's all this evidence. The judges can see it, right? All of this is in your court case. He can go through all of that.
He wants there to be a GAL on the case, which is proper procedure when there's a case like this. So I can understand where he's coming from. Especially when look at all the judges before him that have lost their job because of this case. So I can understand his hesitancy and wanting to go through the proper channels on this case. I can tell you personally, like I know this man is a good man. He is the one that granted the emergency protection order for me because he knew that if he didn't, something would have happened to me.
But then if there's 50-50 custody, he should still, that's the thing. This is where I have an issue with the family courts, because it doesn't matter him doing procedure. There is a child right now, your child, that is a young child being abused. One child has already died. Tommy said, and you also have a pending case of he has a pending criminal case of rape charges against you. There, he should at least, even if it's 50-50, there should be supervised visits with Tom. And I don't care who he lives with, because there's obviously abuse on his side of the family, and no one really knows how many of them are abusive, because usually, abusers protect abusers. That's why you had all these judges and guardian ad litems and cops. All of them were protecting the abuser because they're abusers themselves. That I have said that for many, many years, that abusers protect abusers. So, like, frankly, I have an issue with your judge, because he should be protecting that child. Yes, get it fine, get a guardian ad litem, great, but Tom should be under supervised visits. The pure fact that he has 50% access to your daughter to do
it's whatever. Terrifying. It's horrible.
Yeah. Oh, I can't even imagine.
It's horrible. I hate it. I hate every moment of it. I hate that I hadn't even signed that, but I was literally going to go to jail, and then she would have had 100% access with an abuser. So I really did not have any options there. I didn't have any choice but to do that. But I did want to go back real quick, because I totally went over the fact that there was child pornography. So when he was arrested, they had given me back possession of my car because the car is in my name. I went through my car, and in the back of the trunk, like under the secret compartment where you would find like a tire or something, there was this hard drive. Now, I'd already seen this hard drive, but given that this man just admitted that he has lied about so many things like therapy and mental illnesses, I was like, I want to find out what's on this drive. So the roommates at the time that I was living with, they had a computer. So we go on the computer. And by the way, this hard drive was next to a box of condoms. Just think about that. So, and we put the drive on the computer, and there's all this disgusting, there's a folder that says LOL. And when you click on the folder that says LOL, there's all these disgusting images of depictions of 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and 5-year-old children. I think it went up to about 6 to 7, what they looked like to me at least, having sex with each other and adults. Anal, oral, 3-way orgy.
Well, they're not. Let me just clarify that, because this is, children don't consent. Children are being raped.
Well, this was animated depictions of kids.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting. It was sickening. Yeah. And so I contacted the same detective that was on my rape case. I told her, we found this, don't know what to do with it. It's absolutely disgusting. I'm worried for my children, obviously. She goes, and I go, do you want the computer? Like, you can see, that we looked at it. I'm letting you know right now we looked at it. Do you want this computer? And she goes, no, we don't want the computer. Just give us the hard drive. I give them the hard drive. I don't hear anything about this drive for months. Then I go to my therapist, who's the domestic expert at the Elgin Police Department. And I'm telling her about the hard drive. And she goes, I can look into that because I work here. I have that privilege. So she literally read to me the report. during our session, and I find out that there are over 700 children, real children, on this hard drive. And this was the evidence that I brought to court because I was able to get the FOIA for it. And the first time I called to ask for the FOIA, the individual that was in records told me that it didn't exist. And I go, I'm sorry, I know it exists. I know for a fact it exists. I go, if you were a mother in my position, you would want that. Please help me. And she did. And she sent it to me through my email immediately, which, by the way, it takes like 7 days to get a FOIA. So she knew just how bad I needed this information.
The fact that you know what a FOIA is just shows how much research and things that you have done, because even this, most people don't even know that they can go get government records and communications and everything else. So
when I signed the 50-50 custody agreement, the only positive thing that happened from that, I was able to get all of my son's medical records. And it was from getting all of my son's medical records that I found out he had a prolapse rectum the size of an orange, that there were concerns for sexual abuse, anal penetrative sexual abuse of my son, that they had even sent home what to do after your child's been sexually assaulted material to read regarding my son, that there was no contact with dad allowed and no contact with grandpa allowed, and that my son had to have anal repair surgery
and
at
they
1.5.
sent him home. They sent all that, but the hospital sent him home with Tom.
Yep. And my son was dying August 13th. It literally stated high risk of morbidity, mortality, and complications, even with corrective measures. Wow. So my son was at the end of his life at that point. So all of this is known. I've posted all this material. Where we're at now, as I still have the 50-50 custody, there's court-ordered trauma and sexual abuse therapy for my daughter. My daughter is still making allegations of sexual abuse to herself, and she has made these allegations to multiple people over a span of a year. And DCFS was actually the one that referred her to this type of therapy, and they've referred her 3 times. So there is evidence that my child is being abused, that she is being abused in a sexual nature, and that she is going to be receiving trauma and sexual abuse therapy. The behaviors that she's been showing are that of a traumatized child. She becomes very emotional, very skittish, very scared easily, crying, hyperventilating, screaming, panic attacks. She picks all the time at her fingers, at her clothes. She will stare off into space. Her eyes will just stare. Mm. And one time I asked her, I go, what are you thinking about? She goes, I don't know. She just stares. And you can't even get her out of it until like 3 minutes later. How old is she now? She is 6. So since all this has happened, I went to the state's attorney now when she got into office. I let her know about my rape case. I gave her all the information. She's seen the text for herself, and she charged my ex with domestic battery, criminal sexual assault, and aggravated domestic battery. So there is hope for this case. A guardian ad litem has been appointed. I am waiting for that order to go through. With the guardian ad litem, I'm asking for full custody, obviously, full decision making, full medical, full everything. So we are waiting for all that to go through. In addition to that, Tom has been charged with violating my order of protection. There is a sentencing hearing for that in April. So these are all the things that have been happening since my journey, since speaking out, since doing everything that I've been doing. Justice for James has over 17,000 followers. I have over 2,800 supporters on my personal page that follow me. And it's been amazing to meet all the other mothers that have gone through something like this and people that are fighting in family court right now. I want to be an advocate for those individuals that need help. I try to talk to them as much as I can and tell them about my story. I don't want anything like this to ever happen to another child. DCFS has actually made a law, and it's not specifically James' law, which I want to fight for, but it is a law that says that it doesn't matter who is stating a child has been sexually assaulted, that child is required to get a forensic interview. And we used to not have that law. And my son's case is the only high publicity public case regarding sexual abuse of a child in Illinois. So I like to think that law is because of all the work that I have been doing.
Well, you're brave. I mean, you've gotten loud, and I'm so proud of you. And I want you to know this. And I want your guardian ad litem, because they're trolling you hard on your Facebook and everywhere you post. I want the guardian ad litem, and this is me telling them, the guardian ad litem, whoever you are, Judge Peterson, and the state's attorney, we are watching you, and she has an army behind her. So you better get off your fucking ass and do what you need to do to get justice for her son and remove that child from the abuse. Because if it doesn't happen quickly here and it continues to drag on, that army's coming to your doorstep. And we're not threatening harm, but we will do things lawful. So in your illegal court system where you've corrupted her, and you have not corrupted Kara, but you are having your corruption, we know that your courts don't have authority over her daughter. So you better start doing what you need to do, or that army is coming to your doorstep. Because I talk with Kara, I get the updates from Kara, and my army is her army now. And so when you're watching this, I'm letting you guys know, you better start doing what your job is and start doing things lawfully and not legally. You know what I'm talking about. We're sick of the Bar Association running our country. We're sick of the Bar Association hurting our children. What happened to James and what's happening to Sasha is going to stop, and it's going to stop soon. And so TikTok, because we're coming and we're pissed and we love Kara and we support Kara and we're coming for you. I didn't mean to cut you off, Kara, but I've heard your story multiple times, but you know that my army is your army, and we will do whatever so you can get justice. Now tell us how we can help you, because I know you have a lot going on. So tell us how we can, one, follow you, support you, and what you need from the people watching.
So one of the biggest things right now is financial support is very helpful. Obviously, everyone knows custody cases are extremely expensive, especially those involving child abuse, child sexual abuse, child physical abuse. They become extremely expensive due to investigators that are needed, and all the other workers that they hire, therapeutic resources, etc. So you can help me by donating to my GoFundMe. We did meet our $30,000 goal. I have currently raised that because it's been a 3-year period, and a lot more is needed to get to where we need to be and to continue the progress that we have been reaching through the years. I really do appreciate anyone who donates. It means so much to me that you're willing to donate and that you're willing to help me and you're willing to help Sasha. I also have a petition for the Palatine Police to investigate the murder of my son, the alleged murder of my son, excuse me. And so I will be linking.
You guys murdered her son. Come after me. Come after me and see. Well, I would love to go to discovery with all of you guys, because I would be on her side. So I will say it. You don't have to say it, because I know you have a lot of lawsuits and everything pending, but I'll say it. They murdered her son, and she needs to have justice. And it's justice for James, like she says. And so I'll say I'm not afraid of him.
So I will have I have the petition. I can send you the link. We have already 32,000 people who have signed that. So our support is a lot of support. I mean, over $30,000 in donations, over 32,000 signatures for a petition. So this is a worthy cause. And this is not just fighting for James. This is fighting for Sasha. And this is fighting for all other victims who have been silenced due to a corrupt court system, due to people refusing to listen. I told the police the day that they decided to let my ex go that I would not be the last victim. They knew that. I said there will be another, and my son is showing up with signs of being raped. An expert at Lori's Children is saying that she has concerns my son was raped. And if my daughter discloses sexual abuse, that is even more likely that is exactly what happened to my son. He had all the signs. He had the pulsing anus. He had the anal dilation. It wasn't just a prolapse, and I actually hate that it's described that way, because he literally had no anal tone. It would go in and then it would just come right back out. The doctor described having his hand over my son's bottom, and then it would just fall out. So he didn't have any control anymore. for those rectal muscles. So it was trauma. It was damage to the rectal area. And he was born perfect. He had no issues whatsoever with that ever being a problem. He had no constipation. He had no history of constipation. In fact, the first doctor that Tom went to, he specifically told them, my son had no history of constipation, and that was never a concern. So he told different things to all these different doctors and changed his story many a time. And if anyone is a suspect right now in what happened to my son, the sexual abuse, as well as the alleged homicide, it is Tom, because no one else is being looked at for sexual assault crimes. No one else had possession of a hard drive and stated that it was their sole property when it contained child pornography. So I believe with all my heart that this man did this to my son, and I will not rest until he is lawfully dealt with.
Yeah. Well, and I want people to know, when she's asking for this GoFundMe, the legal courts, she is in, narcissists like to drag you through the court system, and she is surrounded by narcissistic people in the court systems with attorneys and judges and everything else. I'm not saying the attorney representing her, I know he's a good guy at this point. And so I want you guys to know she's working. She's a single mom. She has to pay for her house and food, and like, listen, I have kids are expensive, anyone that has kids. So if you can donate and help her, because she is fighting basically her daughter right now. This is enslaved to Tom and his family, and she cannot do it all on her own. She is very strong. She's 26. She's such a strong hero. Strong person. I tell her all the time, you're my hero. I can't believe that you're doing this at 26. So please support her. This is where, when people are tithing to all these mega church pastors and everything else, that's not who you should be tithing to. Tithing to someone like Kara, who is fighting so she can have the life with her daughter, and then also when her daughter's away from Tom, can afford the therapy and the care that Sasha's going to need moving forward, because that's going to be very expensive moving forward. So I will put the petition. I will post the petition on my Telegram, and then I will also post the links here, guys, of her GoFundMe, her Facebook, her Telegram. Go follow her on all of those. She has a Justice for James as well. And I think that she should have more than 17,000 followers. And I also want to tell people that are watching, if you have a story similar to Kara's and you want a platform, my platform is your platform. If you want to talk about what happened to your kid and the corruption, the only way we stop it is by getting loud and talking about it. So, I mean, Kara, I respect you so much, and I'm so proud of you. I know you don't need to hear that from me, because you're doing fine. But is there any last words that you want to tell everybody?
Don't stay silent. My own history of staying silent, it destroyed me. And because I chose to stay silent and protect my original abuser, I ended up in a cycle of abuse, falling in love with yet another abuser who did the same thing to me. You can end the cycle, but you need to end it by being loud and getting help for what has happened to you. I am now in trauma therapy. I am now processing what I went through as a child, as well as what I'm going through now. And it is the best decision I have ever made. I have a job I absolutely love right now. I'm going to be furthering my career in nursing. I have the best relationship I could possibly have with my daughter, and I have a better relationship with myself. When I do get anxiety, I'm able to recognize this is anxiety, and it will pass, and I will be okay, and I am safe. And that has all come from acknowledging what has happened to me and speaking out about it. And I would like to do this. I would like to go to schools and talk about this. I think it's very important that kids who are silent right now and that they are afraid to come forward, that they do, and that they stop the abuse, because they're not just stopping the abuse with them, they're stopping the abuse for generations to come. just by saying, this happened to me and it needs to stop.
Yeah. Gosh, guys, I can't, there's nothing else I can say. I mean, she's so powerful, and man, she's going to be a world leader one day. I hope she is, because she's going to fight for the change that we need. And everyone on her case, we are watching. The Army is watching. The resistance is watching. So do right by Kara, because we're not messing around anymore. We love all of you guys. Thanks for tuning in. And please go donate to Kara's GoFundMe. Love you guys.